How about a trip to Africa? One of our patrons, Tom, is asking about going to Africa. I actually met Tom for the first time at our elk boot camp, Tate's Elk Boot Camp. There was Tom, and I said, Tom, I know you. You're one of my patrons. And he was a great guy from, I think, North Dakota. And we got to talking about Africa, and he started to sound interested. And I said, gosh, you ought to go sometime, Tom. And now it looks like he's seriously considering it because this is what he wrote. Ron, I hope you had a great time in Africa. I haven't gone yet, Tom. I told him we were going to Africa, but we haven't gotten there yet this year. But then he says, I have some questions about a trip to Africa. Victoria Falls, is it possible for me to see them if I go over there? Is there a country that has hunting that is near Victoria Falls? Zimbabwe, Zambia, well, those would be the countries bordering the falls. I don't know anything about these countries or the hunting opportunities there. Is there somebody that does research for you, like a travel agent? Is there still travel agents anymore? Are there such a thing? Yeah, they're still out there, Tom. Hey, I have an idea on a cost of a trip. I think it's around maybe $30,000 to $40,000. Am I in the ballpark on this one? Yeah, but I think you could get one for a lot less, Tom. So where do I start, he asks, and which countries are safe to go to? Do I have time to get this figured out by next June or so? Please advise me on what to do first. As far as the hunting goes, I'm not too picky on the type of game, plains animals or dangerous game, either one, fine. I mainly want to have the experience of going to Africa. Here's my phone number. Please advise me on what to do next. Thanks for your time and any ideas, Tom. So there you go. Tom, I am going to get back to you with all kinds of details on this, but I wanted to read this letter to let everyone else know that all of my patrons are invited, first come, first serve, on a trip to Africa. If you guys are thinking of making a trip over there, I'm going to be putting one together for Tom and me and a couple of other folks who have expressed some interest. So we need to get started on that stuff. I've got 3 or 4 outfitters that are offering me some trips over there. We can go to Botswana, the Limpopo district of South Africa, which is pretty far north, up there against the border of Zimbabwe and or Botswana. We could also go to Namibia or to the Eastern Cape of South Africa. Great places and outfitters at all those, so we just need to figure out which one. It will be for plains game, and it will be well under $30,000. So if you patrons are interested, give me a jingle, and you guys get the first crack at it, and if we have any seats left over, we can open it up to others. Now, here is another patron, Gino, and he's got some good news coming out of Minnesota. He says, hey, Minnesota finally repealed the shotgun boundary zone. It won't take effect until 2026, but that means I can use my 7mm Remington Magnum for the 2026 hunting season. This brings me to a question about my current rifle. I'm considering rebarreling my Bergara B14 HMR with a McGowan custom prefit barrel. I plan to keep most specifications standard, but the only difference being that I will select the fastest twist available, a 1 in 8, and opt for a larger contour, something like a medium to a heavy Palma. My main goal is to stabilize a wide range of 7mm bullets, particularly the larger grain options. Will swapping out the barrel with a new prefit be as straightforward as I think? Or am I overlooking something important? I'm anticipating that I'll need to rebarrel in a year or two. I bought this rifle used, so I'm unsure how many rounds it had through it before I purchased it. As I continue to increase my round content and with my plans to participate in the NRL hunter matches nearby while training for a future Western hunt, well, my barrel usage will only rise significantly, so he's probably going to need that new barrel in time for the 26th season. So what should he do here? You know, the 1 in 10 standard twist in a 7 rem mag with that kind of velocity, you're pretty much going to be able to handle bullets up to that 175 grain weight. Now, I'm not positive it will stabilize the 180 grain, really high BC, really long bullets. Traditionally, the 175s were flat-based spire points, but not the really aggressive shape and form that puts the BC numbers really high, but also stretches out that bullet really far, which means you need a faster twist rate. I would think, though, that a 1 and 8 would do the job for you. If you want to do some more research on it, there is a great resource on Bergara's website. The Bergara bullet manufacturer there's a bullet stability calculator in there. So go to their website and look for that ballistic stability calculator, and it will ask you for some inputs, and then it'll tell you which twist rate you should get for a particularly long bullet. And that's probably the best way to get a for sure proper barrel twist for what you're building. Other than that, I think you're right on. Now, your pre-fit barrels should be pretty straightforward. If they are pre-fit, that means that the barrel has very precisely been measured to fit the action that you have. So all you have to do is turn it on and torque it to the specifications. But I would recommend you get a go, no-go chamber gauge for head spacing just to make sure. But I'm pretty confident that those pre-fit barrels are going to be right there. But it never hurts to be cautious about that sort of thing. I think you ought to be all right. So that was a good one. Okay, now let's see. Here is something about the Stealth Vision scopes again. Getting a lot of stuff on this. Ron always looks awkward when he shoots. It's like it's a surprise when the gun goes off, and it nearly scopes him. Yeah, well, I've often heard you should be surprised when your gun goes off. That's been a standard. You shouldn't jerk the trigger. You should kind of be surprised when it breaks. I don't subscribe to the surprise. I like to know my trigger and my gun well enough that it's about there, and I think it's going to go, and I can control it. But what you're seeing on a lot of these videos, like that stealth video one, is that I am very minimally holding the rifle because I don't want to jar it, shake it, move it, wiggle it, etc., etc. That works well with heavy rifles when you're bench shooting and you've got good support. But I sometimes forget myself and the cartridge that I'm shooting, and I'll use that with a rifle that kicks a little too much and is probably a little bit too light for that technique. But that's why I've got kind of that loose hold, and it looks like it surprises me, and it really flies back because I'm barely into that rifle. It is something I should correct, though. That's not the best way to shoot a hunting rifle from the bench. Target rifles, yeah, it works. As for getting scoped, I don't have any scars from being scoped ever. I've gotten scoped a couple of times very lightly, but I've never gotten a big scope. I think what you're seeing mostly is my light frame being shoved back by the recoil. That was a 28 Nosler I was shooting in that particular one. So it rocks old Grandpa Ron pretty good. All right, let's hear from Mr. Rosario. This is regarding a Alaska bear guide punching a bear. That's our pilot, Jerry Jakes. He told us a great story on a podcast interview we did with him. He has been a bear hunting guide, all-around hunting guide in Alaska for 40-some years. He's been a pilot, a bush pilot for 40-some years. Got a lot of great stories. We had a fun interview with him. So this is from that. And he talked about a bear that stuck his head right through the Viz Queen plastic tent and bit him in the arm. And he punched it and drove it back out, went back to sleep, and the bear came back and jumped in and bit him again. This time he punched it with a 45 ACP, and that solved the problem. But let's hear what Mr. Rosario has to say. Hey, that's why they love 18-year-olds in the military. 100% no risk management. Going to Alaska at his young age, and he made it out alive. That's amazing. Although what he is talking about is another story that Jerry told. When he was 17 or 18 years old, he ran up to Alaska, and he stayed in his grandfather's old hunting cabin, which hadn't been occupied for something like a decade. And someone told him that it was full of food in a barrel. So really all he needed was a few basics in his rifle. So this guy drops him off, and the cabin has been, the food has pretty much been rotted out, and or the rats ate it and different things. At any rate, he is trapped up there all winter, and he almost starved to death. Fascinating story. This is the book. He's got a lot of the stories in there. No Sequel to Life by Jerry Jakes. You can find it on Amazon. You guys might want to look that up. It's a not a great grammar or syntax, but the stories are pretty wild. I think you'll love it. All right. Phil needs to leave the bears alone. Uh-oh. This is DRJ, and he's referencing Phil Shoemaker, another Alaska master guide. We interviewed Phil about a bear that he shot off of the top of his clients, 2 fishing clients. The bear charged. They dropped to the ground in some tall grass. The bear stopped where they were but couldn't see them, and he was standing right over them looking for them. And Phil, just about 12 feet away, had to decide what to do to save these folks. So we had to shoot the bear, and he did it with a 9mm Luger and 147 grain hard cast bullets successfully. And a lot of people have commented on that. It's a really popular podcast. And this gentleman, DRJ, says, Phil needs to leave the bears alone. Bears are smart. They figured out that the crazies want to kill them and eat them. I'm not surprised the bears try to kill these wackadoodles. Wackadoodles, oh my goodness. I'm sorry, DRJ, but that's just really completely out of line. So he is guiding a couple fishing, and the bear attacks them. And now you're accusing him of wanting to eat the bears, and the bears are smart and blah, blah, blah. Listen, Phil has been living in a cabin right in the heart of the best bear country in Alaska for a good 35, 40 years. Maybe even a little bit longer. And he has raised 2 kids up there, so he and his wife live out as homesteaders with the bears all this time. And they're not wackadoodles, and the bears haven't killed them and eaten them, but occasionally he has to shoot a bear that does try to get aggressive. Now, if you want a wackadoodle who didn't hunt bears, what was that guy's name? Timothy Treadwell, I believe. Timothy Treadwell. Look that up. This was a slightly demented guy who decided he was Mr. Bear Whisperer, and he needed to go to Alaska and live with the brown bears and protect them from all the evil wackadoodle people you're talking about. And the bears returned the favor by eating him, and unfortunately, his lady friend. So, it's not as simple as these anti-hunters like to make it out to be. All right, there's another one on bears. People just love discussing bear stuff. This is 7, and he's talking about bear stopping power. So many people clowning in the comments, I only carry a 375 H&H Magnum. Well, if you are hunting bears, sure, but some of y'all are out of your minds and you're living way too much fear. First of all, bear attacks are rare. I'm not saying don't carry anything, but don't make a fool of yourself. I would rather have a guy with a hardcast 9mm or a 357 Magnum that is confident and well practiced rather than a jumpy tourist with a 375 H&H aiming in a panic at every rustle of the bush. That's pretty pragmatic advice.
Ron, that was regarding a short you did up in Alaska with that 375.
The 375 rifle?
No, it was a short we just published.
Oh, that was a 500 Smith & Wesson handgun.
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter. We've basically been just saying that it seems to make more sense to have a medium to heavy powered handgun that you can handle quickly than a 375 H&H or a 416 Rigby or a 12 gauge pump. A lot of folks will write in and say, oh, you need this big rifle, this big shotgun and all. But the point is these bear attacks happen when you're fishing, when you're hiking, when you're berry picking, and you don't walk around with a 9-10 pound rifle on your back. And even if you had that, by the time the bear's charging you and you get that rifle in action, it's too late. The point is you've got to have something that you can use just like that with maybe 2 seconds is all the time you've got. So we appreciate the folks who say use a bigger gun and all. It makes sense until you consider how do you get this thing out in time to do the job, because these bear attacks happen very quickly. Now, here are a bunch of questions that Betsy has brought up for me, so we're going to get these guys figured out, see if we can't answer them.
Okay. Surprise. I'm finally in front of the camera. Ron has bribed me, as well as Landon, to get here. So I'm going to answer some questions that Ron did not answer. And this is from Ronald, another Ronald, so he's got to be an old guy. Sorry, Ron, your content is good, but I'm not sitting through an hour of discussion. And I agree with that. I fall asleep behind the camera when I'm listening to him because he goes on and on and on. Okay, next question. Okay, this is another question I picked out from YouTube. This is CR Magnum. And it's about the WSSM making a comeback. That was the video. Wow, Ron. Ron is not perfect, and he's a human being. No kidding. He is not perfect. I can attest to that. He does say, love your content you put out. I never fail to learn something new from watching you. Well, thank you, Ronald. I was wondering if you ever hunted the Ozarks in Arkansas. I think he has. I don't know. We'll have to ask him. They told me to tip my hat back because they can't see me. I really want to be like this. Okay, this is AC Guy 1 regarding the Stealth Vision short. And he says, why does everyone on your channel shoot like it's a race to the finish line? That's because it's called editing. You don't want to watch Ron aim and aim and aim and then shoot on and on and on for hours on end. So we do you a favor and edit all that stuff out. Okay, this is one of the questions I pulled up that we were supposed to say last time on the podcast, but we ran out of time. And this is from a Doug in Saskatchewan. Ron, I watch as many of your shows as I can on YouTube and enjoy every one. Well, thank you, Doug. Ron, I appreciate that. My question is about the 6.8 Western. I have been a 30-06 man nearly all my life, and I'm 72 now. Well, you are right with Ron. You were born in 1953 would be my guess. About 3 years ago, when the 6.8 came out, I was thinking it's time for a change. The local gun shop advised against it, stating they thought it wouldn't catch on and just be a flash in the pan. Now, in 2025, they seem to have already been gone. Is that the trend in America as well? Or am I just looking in the gun shops and not getting the right answers? I think the 6.8, from my knowledge and talking to Ron, Joseph, and Tate, that it's coming back. But I may be wrong. We'll have to ask Ron. The other thing is, if you're thinking of a change at 72, I'd go for the 6.8. And the reason is because in 10 years it may be gone, but at 82, you may or may not be hunting, so go for it right now. Oh, okay. And then we're going to bring Ron back in because this is getting old. Okay. And you guys can click. Do not reply and comment on me because it'll hurt my feelings. Oh, my God.
Let her have it, guys.
This is terrible. Okay. This is Skylar from California. Hello, Ron and Betsy. Love the channel. As a truck driver, I binge all podcasts. In 2 weeks now, I'm on the edge of my seat waiting for the weekly uploads. Well, thank you, Skylar. You must be bored driving to listen to us, but thank you anyway. I've been shooting for 2 years and have definitely caught the bug. I have a couple questions for you. Should I rebarrel my current rifle or purchase new ones? Purchase new ones. California is lead-free only for hunting, and most of my hunting rifles will not properly stabilize the longer copper bullets. What caliber am I missing from my current collection? And he goes on and on and on about his current collection. I'll have to ask Ron because I have no idea. Ron, you'll have to come in here and answer this question.
All right, slide over, honey.
We may have to.
Going to need a team effort on this one.
So he has all those rifles.
Skylar from California. Ooh, yes. Okay. Skylar has a 22 long rifle. He has a 9mm, a 38 357, a 44 Magnum, a 45 LC, a 45 ACP, a 460 Rowland, a 454 Kazoo. This guy owns an arsenal. A 460 Smith & Wesson. You said you're from California? Don't let him catch you. A 204 Ruger and a 223. And he wants to know about what?
What is he missing?
Well, what do you want to use them for? What do you want to shoot? Are you talking about hunting, big game hunting? Do you need more rifles is what I would say. You've got a whole bunch of short-range handgun cartridges here. So if you're only interested in handguns, I think you've kind of covered everything. But the only couple of rifles you see here probably is a 204 Ruger and a 223.
He says most of my hunting rifles will, he's talking about long copper bullets.
Oh, long copper bullets. Most standard cartridges for copper bullets are loaded with short enough bullets. In other words, if you still have, say, a 30-06 or a 270 or 308 or anything like old twist rates, they load ammunition for those with shorter bullets, lighter weight bullets. So in a 30-06, for instance, if you were shooting a 180 grain bullet and stabilizing it quite nicely with your traditional lead core bullets, you would go to probably 165 for the same length. And then, of course, you can go up to a 220 grain round nose in most 1 in 10 twist 30-06s and still be stable. So your copper bullet would maybe get you up to 200, 210 grains or something like that. The upshot is, if you go to the store to buy a box of copper ammunition for your 270 or any of the older cartridges with traditional twist rate barrels, they just load those with shorter bullets that'll be a little bit lighter and will stabilize, so you really don't have to worry about that. But if you want to play the highest BC long range game, then you probably want to buy more modern round like a 6.5 Creedmoor, PRC, 7 PRC, any of the fast twist modern chamberings. And those will accommodate even longer bullets, so you can get your BCs even higher with these copper bullets. But the fun thing about copper is because they penetrate as well as a heavier lead core traditionally does, you can shoot a lighter bullet and get a flatter trajectory with less recoil as a result. But you will have less wind deflection with the higher BC bullets all the time. So that's the way to look at those. And then if you're talking about a caliber collection for hunting, and you're really serious about getting into hunting deer and elk and maybe moose someday and bear and stuff like that, you need to get up into that 6.5 PRC, probably minimum, on up into the 30 calibers of some kind. So a 6.5 of some kind, or a 7 millimeter, or a 30. Then you're going to do really well. And most people, as you probably have heard, the 30-06 is considered the ultimate versatile do-it-all kind of a cartridge, but you can do as well with any of the 300 Magnums because they all shoot the same bullets. And if you want a little bit shorter rifle, a little bit lighter action, the 308 length, it's just a shortened 30-06, so quite versatile there as well. But yeah, I think that would do it for you. Just get into a 6.5 or a 7 of some kind, or one of the 30s, and that'll cover a lot of ground for you. And then once you get used to those, you can start deciding from there. Now, do you want to answer Zach from Michigan?
No, I want to leave.
No, you have to stay here. You're really jazzing up the set. All right. Hey, Ron, first of all, I'd just like to say I really enjoy Betsy sitting there being embarrassed by you. Well, it's my pleasure, let me tell you. I'll pay for it later, but for now, this is fun.
No, it's not.
I enjoy your podcast, and I recommended it to people quite often, especially if they have questions about specific cartridges or rifles. I do most of my deer hunting in Michigan, where a group of us still get together multiple times a year, and we enjoy hunting. We go to the rifle. My go-to rifle is the Browning BAR, that's an autoloader, in 30-06. It is excellent for fast action, and it has plenty of power. One thing that frustrates me about it, though, is its accuracy or lack thereof. It's obviously good enough for most situations in the Michigan woods, where we typically shoot less than 100 yards, but I would really like it to be better. I have played around with trying different loads, and it seems to like 165 grain SST bullets. Beyond that, I've tried to find information about glass bedding and freeing the barrel, etc., but I haven't found any information on ways to improve its accuracy. Do you have any advice or knowledge on ways that we can improve it? P.S. A couple of years ago, I wanted a more accurate rifle for sitting in the stand, and I chose a Winchester Model 70 Super Grade, beautiful rifle, in 7mm 08 Remington, largely due to several videos and talks that you have done about that. It is an amazing cartridge that people often overlook, and is perfect for deer. Thanks so much for all the advice you give to in a non-condescending manner. Non-condescending manner.
Oh.
Now, just to give Betsy a chance to stick it to me, show these people what bones are on the table here.
That's a deer I shot last year, the infected deer that we kept the horns.
This is a 7mm 08 Conquest right here.
Mule deer.
Yeah, Betsy took this out behind the house in what we call the back 40. And
anyway.
It's a splendid mule deer. Beautiful stock she made, guys. She closed within 150 yards. Started off at, 400 and something?
Yeah, I didn't feel comfortable at
Yeah.
400.
Yep. And she was smart enough to say, let's get closer. And boy, did she ever. She got down in the rocks and crawled and crawled and crawled until she closed that distance. Made a perfect one-shot kill on that big buck. Unfortunately, there was something infected in his body and we couldn't eat him. It was
Grossly
pretty sad.
infected.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But 708, that's what she used. You like that 708?
I like the 708, and I like it with a suppressor.
Yeah. She shot it one time with the suppressor off and the ear protection off, and she was ringing for days. And
For
figures
the rest of my life, actually.
she's got tinnitus now. So, but yeah, now let's get back to his question about that auto-loading rifle. You know, we covered the Browning auto-loading rifle in our 30-06 week last year, and it was really inaccurate too. Not horribly so, you know, but certainly not up to what you would expect from typical bolt action. And I honestly can't give you answers on how to fix that because I'm just not that familiar with the autoloaders. I don't work with them very often. I have borrowed some a few times and had good luck with them. Like you say, inside of 200 yards, even for me, I think we went out about that far. But they're really popular for woods hunting where you have to have quick follow-up shots. But I have just never played around with trying to float barrels. I think the barrels actually are floated on those. But somebody who's really familiar with a Browning automatic rifle, write in and let us know. My cousin had one, and he was one heck of a shot back in the day. But I don't know that he ever shot it at paper targets for groups or anything. He just went deer hunting and never missed. And sometimes he would take some pretty long shots out on the plains and prairies. So it can be done. It could just be that particular rifle just is not all that accurate. You're on the right track by trying different loads. That sometimes makes the difference. But anyone out there who has some tricks for tweaking the accuracy of a Browning automatic rifle, that would really be welcome stuff. We'll read it here the next time if we get it.
Can't I go?
No, you have to read this guy's name.
1, 2. Steve. Steve from Flowery Branch. I don't know where.
See, this is what I'm up against when I read these too. If you don't slide that over and get that information. Georgia.
Flowery Branch, Georgia.
All right. What does Steve say? Hi, Ron. You recently asked, can we really have enough rifles? Some people think none of us need more than one. Some of them think we don't need any. Here is some food for thought, some fodder. I see a lot of people complaining every time a new cartridge comes out. They say, I inherited Grandpa's 4590 falling block back in 48, and it still gets the job done. But now I have to hand load because Hornady and Federal refuse to make factory ammunition. We don't need all these new cartridges taking up production capacity. Grumble, grumble, grumble. He says as he pulls his 62 Studebaker out with 487,000 original miles. Sure, a lot of people only ever have one centerfire rifle, but lots of others do buy more guns. A kid gets a 243 from mom and dad when he turns 14. Some years later, a Woodstock 308 is purchased. An opportunity to hunt out west comes up, and the 7mm Remington Magnum shows up with a carbon fiber stock. It gets interesting in local competitions, and he buys a 6.5 Creedmoor with an adamantium alloy barrel, gets made a partner in the law firm and celebrates by buying a high-speed, low-drag Park West bolt gun with grade 97 walnut in 300 PRC. And then the firm has a banner year, and the bonus will pay for a dangerous game hunt in Namibia. And here comes the 375, not an H&H Magnum, but a Ruger. And on it goes because rifles required equals rifles on hand plus one more. This guy's funny. But why did the gun and ammo companies come up with all these cartridges anyway? That fella with more dollars and cents wouldn't have bought all those darn guns and wouldn't have missed them had they not been produced in the first place, and I'd still be able to find my 4590 ammunition. The fact is, an economic fact, if the companies only made guns and ammo for the tried and true cartridges of the first half of the 20th century, our Studebaker driving friend, Mr. Curmudgeon, and the other one gun for life folks would buy a box of ammo every year or two for the annual zero check and 2 shots at a whitetail. Except they wouldn't because gun and ammo companies wouldn't sell enough guns and ammo to make any more money and they go out of business. So Mr. Curmudgeon still wouldn't find factory ammunition for his 4590. Bottom line, and it's an economic reality, folks, Companies grow or they wither away. Do we really want to go back 60 years? Annual sales of Studebakers and RC Cola answer that question. Keep up the great work, Ron and Betsy. I watch every video on Patreon, so thanks for the great content. Oh, who was that? Steve from Georgia. Appreciate that, Steve. Good sense of humor. And you nailed it. I mean, that's exactly right. People they just like to grumble. I mean, I was the same way years ago. It was
No,
like,
you still like to grumble.
okay, I'm still like that. But I don't grumble about new cartridges too much because you're absolutely right. You know, if you don't keep the excitement up, if you don't sell new products, you go out of business. And all these guys who grumble about, oh, why should I be given a new choice in bullets or a new choice in ammo? Why do they keep making this new stuff? You don't have to buy it, guys. They're giving you an option. And if they don't stay in business, you're not going to even get your old ammunition. So, great point.
Hey, Ron, I'm going behind the camera now.
What for?
Because
Camera's taking care of itself. Look at that. Camera never fails. Just keeps working.
Nope,
It's a
I'm
great
gone.
camera.
I'm gone.
Say goodbye to Betsy, everybody.
I'm on, shoot straight.
Yep. Make sure you write in and tell her you want her to be on more often.
No.
Only solo. You want her to answer all the questions. Next time we'll put Covey back in this chair. Maybe she can answer some questions. Well, thanks for that little cameo, Betsy. I kept you longer than I said. I told her she could just answer one question and I'd let her off. I got her. All right, let's go to Oregon where Lou is commenting about a great show. Well, thanks, Lou. We appreciate that. Lou says, I watched episode 345 of Ron Spomer Outdoors podcast talking about round nose versus spire point bullets. Around the same time, I saw a documentary on torpedoes. The documentary said the round nose was more stable in water than a pointed one. If I'm remembering correctly, the pointed nose was more stable in the air. I have a 17-foot V-hull boat that really likes to hunt when trolling. I don't know if that's relative or it relates or not. Have you done a comparison of the two in ballistic gel? Thanks, Lou. Lou, I was going to say that round nose might be more stable in water, but I rarely shoot in water. Most of my bullets are going through the air, and I haven't had any trouble stabilizing bullets with the right twist rate in any kind of air. So I don't think there's an accuracy issue. What I usually hear from folks about round-nosed bullets is that they say they hit harder, and they kind of look like they do. It's sort of like one of those short-necked, stubby fighters that it just looks like he's a fire plug, and you can't really hurt him, but he can sure hurt you. That kind of a look to it. But when you actually look at the physics of it, the energy, it's the spire point that carry more energy because they don't lose as much energy to drag. The round-nosed bullet is wasting all of its kinetic energy pushing air out of the way, whereas the spire point slips through the air, saves its energy, and drops more energy on the target. So I guess the round-nosed guys would say, well, there's more surface area hitting the animal with that round nose rather than that pointed bullet, which kind of seems to make sense until you think, what happens with that bullet the instant it hits the animal? It starts to flatten, expansion. And by the time it's gone 2 or 3 inches, it is a lot wider than when it started. And I don't think you can tell the difference between the round nose and the spire point at that point. So I don't know. If you believe in them and they work for you, go ahead, stick with it. But the actual real physics, Newtonian physics answer is that the more efficiently aerodynamically designed bullet of the same weight is going to carry more energy and put that energy on the target. But if you think your round noses are dropping your game better than the sharp pointed bullets, go for it. No harm, no foul. Okay. But as far as, which one's more stable in the water, it really doesn't matter. Once again, it's not in the water that we're shooting. So boats and torpedoes, I don't think translate to bullets in the air. But thanks for bringing it up, Lou. It's always fun to think about different ways. Like, hey, I never thought of that. If the submarine's like round-nosed torpedoes, maybe I should have one in my bullet. Also, I think those submarine torpedoes have energy. They got a little motor inside that keeps them going. They're not slowing down from friction. Okay, Matt from Virginia. I was born then, given my grandfather's Winchester. What? Oh, I was born, And then I was given my grandfather's Winchester Model 62A22. It's still plinking and taking squirrels today. Hey, that's great. That is a fun little rifle. It's a pump action. I bought a used one, paid way too much money for it, but this took me back to my childhood. A lot of guys had them out on the farms and stuff. And I used to think they were some old-fashioned, clunky-looking thing, but as I got older, started to appreciate their function and form, and they are a sweet little rifle. If you can find one, pick it up because they are fun. At any rate, Matt has one. Let's see what he has to say about it. I got a little older, then I got a 410 shotgun. Older still, and I was given my father's Ruger number 1 in 270. Boy, that's a sweet one. I've been with the 270 round and that rifle ever since. It's short and easily handled, heavy wooded mid-Atlantic hunting out to 200 yards, no problem. Now I'm looking to reach out a bit further and also do some longer range shooting. Everything I've read says that the 270 isn't around for longer range hunts and shooting due to a slower twist rate, not being able to stabilize bullets. Now this is where my knowledge falls off. I can't attest to this, and I've never tried, so I begin looking at the options. 6.8 Western interests me quite a bit, but I'm not too sure the recoil increase is worth it to me. I would genuinely like to stick with the 270 as it just plain gets the job done, and I already have a great stock of ammo. In looking, I noticed some, like Christensen and Browning, are offering rifles chambered in the old reliable 270, but with a 7.5 twist instead of the traditional 10-inch twist. This probably is a direct result of the 6.8 Western existing, but here's my question. Has the move by some to modernize the twist rate given the 270 new life, or is the 270 now a good option for longer shots with heavier bullets? Well, a couple of answers here for you, Matt. The 270 has always been a great long-range cartridge. That's what it built its reputation on. Starting in 1925 when it came out, it was touted as the fastest shooting deer rifle out there, or cartridge out there. And Jack O'Connor, of course, really pushed it, and it was a 400-yard flat shooter in those days, and it still is remarkably flat, even with the lighter weight bullets. Now, the 130 grain bullet is where it cut its teeth. They gave it 150 grain for a little heavier punch at the bigger animals in closer. The 130 shoots flatter. They also have a 100 grain. They offered that load for varminters. And that can be used on the smaller deer and pronghorn and such things. That's really fast and flat, like 3,500 feet per second fast. So you can do darn well out to 300-400 yards with the standard 1 in 10 twist, 130 grain, 140 grain bullet, 270. But we recently, for our 270 week, which is coming soon, on our regular channel, Ron Spomer Outdoors, we tested one of these 7.5 twist rifles. It's the Browning X-Bolt 2, and oh my goodness, did we get an eye-opener with that one. I'm not gonna spoil it here, guys. No spoiler alert. You're going to have to watch this video because what this rifle did absolutely blew Joseph and me out of the water. We couldn't believe what that thing was capable of doing. So my short answer to you before you watch that video is definitely consider the 7.5 twist offerings in a 270. And if you mix that with hand loading, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. But an easier way to go about it is to probably get that 6.8 Western. That is steadily growing in popularity as shooters begin to realize what it can do. And that'll shoot 165, 170, 175 grain bullets. That's generally what's loaded in those. So you've got some pretty good options there. But I think you're going to enjoy seeing what that fast twist 270 can do. All right, go to Wisconsin where we hear from Jace. Hey, Ron, I've got a bit of a different question for you. This one isn't about guns or calibers, but it's about dogs. I just got a new 3-month-old male black lab that I named Remington. Yours not the first. I've seen a few Remington black labs before and hunted over them. It was named after my grandfather's Remington Model 700 chambered in 6mm Remington. Boy, you're just coming close to my heart on all of this stuff. Black labs and 6mm Remingtons, that works for me. We call the dog Remy for short. I've heard that one too. The question I have is regarding duck hunting with him. In the future, I have ordered books and I've been watching several videos online about training Labrador retrievers to duck hunt. as I would like to train him myself. I don't have the money to take him to a professional trainer. So in pretty much all the sources I've looked into, they seem to stress that getting a puppy with good hunting pedigree is one of the most important steps when you choose a future duck dog. Well, this is where my issue comes in, as I'm not completely sure if Remington's a pedigreed dog. I do know that Remington's dad is an AKC registered lab. However, I am not sure if his dad has any hunting history. His mom, on the other hand, has no papers, as she was rescued as a puppy, though she is clearly a full-on Labrador Retriever. My question is, knowing this information on Remy, do you think with the proper personal training, he could make a fine duck dog in the future? Or do you think that his unknown pedigree is going to largely be the deciding factor on if I have success training him for the field, or rather the water? I appreciate your input and hearing the successes you've had with Covey, and I hope that you and your wife and Covey are all doing well. Thank you. Well, as you could just see, Betsy's doing well, but we didn't bring Covey in. We didn't want it to get too crowded up here, but she's doing well too and looking forward to the upcoming hunting seasons. Now, my good friend who works for us and puts a lot of these podcasts together and edits and stuff, and is a fine shooter and a great hunter, Landon, was just telling me about his Labrador that he trained himself. And that dog had made a 280-yard retrieve of a duck sailing off into the lake that it couldn't even see. Didn't even see it go down. Landon has it so well trained that he walks down to the shore and he says, back, which is the command to go in a straight line. And when the dog's about halfway to the duck and is getting a little bit, what am I doing out here? Landon gives it a command. It looks back at him and he goes, back. And the dog knows he's got to keep going. And sure enough, he gets out there far enough to find that duck. So yeah, labs can really do the job. Now, do you need a pedigreed lab to do that? I would say no, because I had a Labrador I bought for $2.50 back in 1972. And it was kind of a German Shepherd Labrador. And that thing was a hunting machine. You just need to know how to train a dog, and that is mostly patience, positive reward, and repetition. And don't overdo it. So with Covey, for instance, she's a setter. They're great natural pointers, but not so great all the time on retrieving. So I wanted to force break her to retrieve, which means you teach her to retrieve on command. And what I did was open her mouth, put a dummy in it, and closed it and wouldn't let her spit it out by holding her. Of course, she didn't like that. She tried to get it out of my face, man. But I would make her hold it for just a few seconds, and then when she released it, I gave her a little piece of hot dog. Took about 2 days of 10 minutes of that per day, and she was all over that game. She was opening her mouth and grabbing that thing so fast, and then I would hold it further away from her mouth and say, fetch, and she would reach out and grab it and get her little reward, and pretty soon I was throwing it, and after that it was, give me that dummy and then my hot dog. So once you've got them all excited about retrieving like that, you get rid of the hot dog stuff, and they get rewarded by the fun of bringing it back and being patted or rewarded and said, good dog. And it doesn't take a lot to really make a dog feel good. And then you've started. So buy yourself some training books. There's dozens of them out there. And Landon, he's got some information for me right here. Landon says Retriever Roadmap by Josh Miller. Is that right? That's the training guide he used, and as I said, he's got a heck of a lab.
We'll put a link in the video.
We'll put a link in. Don't forget, you got to put a link in. Landon's got it. He's on it. Great questions there. Nice to have something about labs and dogs and stuff instead of just ballistics all the time. I hope others agree, but don't think that you can't have a good dog because it's not pedigreed. A lot of this stuff is...
Or papered.
Papered?
Yeah, have papers.
Papered. I thought that meant they would go on the paper to the potty, not on the floor. But that's okay. Either way, you do need them papered. But it really doesn't matter if they're papered or not. What you want to look at for papers, obviously, before you buy the puppy, if you're really interested in good bloodlines, you want to buy from some breeder who has selected the best hunting dogs and bred them to the best hunting dogs again and again. And there's where the papers start to mean something. You know, has this dog won a bunch of hunter field competitions proving that it can retrieve quickly, find game, has a good nose and all that stuff. AKC doesn't really mean anything. American Kennel Club does not test for that stuff to my knowledge. So don't get too worried about that kind of thing. Robert, Texas. I am an RSO and Patreon member. Well, thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. A friend of mine needed to sell some rifles to raise $4,000 for cataract surgery. Well, I bought 5 guns from him for $4,000K, or for $4K, I should say. One I found particularly interesting. It was a custom-built .264 Winchester Magnum. Don't see those very often. According to the serial number, this is Remington 700 Action. It was manufactured in 1968. Since it is a custom barrel, it doesn't have the 2-digit barrel code. Knowing who originally owned the rifle, the timestamp would make sense. It is stainless, smooth as butter, and custom build. It should be. The trigger has had a trigger job, and it pulls at a crisp 1 pound 12 ounces. The barrel and rifle were built by a custom gunsmith in Odessa, Texas, named Cecil Tucker. Cecil was a renowned bench rest and long-range shooter. The scope is a Nikon 4-1250 on a Burris base and rings, which is pretty typical of rifles from this era. Phagin is on the recoil pad, so it is a Phagin custom thumb hole laminated stock. Wow. There is not a mark on this rifle. I'd love to send you some photos. I'd love to get them. I also acquired a Weatherby Mark V Accumart in 7mm STW. Wow, that's shooting times Westerner. You don't see a lot of that anymore. That's the 8mm Remington Magnum, neck down to 7. So it's your full length 35 or 375 H&H length cartridge. That one was developed as the Wildcat by Lane Simpson. Yes, it sure was. And I have hunted with Lane and that particular cartridge too. So that's it. There's really no question. He's just talking about all this stuff that he found, and that's a good find. We like to hear about unusual rifles like that. A custom build of a Winchester cartridge in a Remington rifle, and then custom built. That's pretty cool. Yeah, send some pictures of that if you get a chance, Robert. And thanks for being a patron. Really appreciate it. Thomas from Kansas. I have a 30-06, and I'd like to use it as a pronghorn and a deer and a black bear hunting rifle. The furthest shot would be 500 yards. Well, 150 grain core, cup in core. Oh, he wants to use a 150 grain traditional bullet, cup and core bullet. You got a lead core and a thin gilding metal jacket, typical bullet. I am looking at Federal Power Shock, that's one of them, and Federal Fusion. Now, the Fusion's different because that one is molecularly fused jacket 2 lead, so they can't break apart. This is my first question to you, and I'm a big fan of yours. So I'm not quite sure what the question is, Thomas, but if you're asking me which one to use for pronghorn and whitetail and mule deer, either one is going to work. If I were using that Federal Power Shock bullet, that's the cup and core, I would probably stick with broadside right behind the shoulder shots. That's the bullet that sometimes will break up and not get inside if you hit a major muscle group or a bone. That's why they started developing these bonded bullets like the Federal Fusion. That one should stay together. They're both going to mushroom plenty, but that Fusion should retain more weight and penetrate farther. Got a better chance of getting through with that. On a pronghorn, really doesn't matter. And your smaller deer really doesn't matter. But on the black bear and the bigger bucks, yeah, I think I would run with that Fusion bullet. But if it's not accurate in your rifle, better to be accurate with the cup and core bullet and go for that behind the shoulder shot. That would be my advice. Now, this isn't to say that those cup and core bullets won't work with other shot placement. I have plenty of times used those and happened to hit right on the shoulder, and they did get inside. It's just that the slight chance that they don't, and then you've got kind of a flesh wound situation going on. So just keep that in mind. But 30-06, good sized bullet. If you really want to make sure you're penetrating on a really, really big animal, step up to 165 grain or even 180. Even if it's a cup and core, because it's longer, you've got a better chance of staying together, keeping a little more weight going on for a little bit better penetration. Good luck there, Thomas. Clay is from Texas. I saw your YouTube interview with Morris on the best bear handgun from a true Alaskan. Could you tell me the brand or the maker of the holster he was using for his Ruger 454? No, I can't. I don't remember that Morris ever said. I thought he said it was a custom. I'm pretty sure that's what he said it was. A friend of his made it or something like that. So it's not really all that complicated. It just had a big flap over the top of it, which he said was pretty essential for keeping not just rain and snow off the handgun, but debris from going through the brush. You can get into some real thickets up there, and then you end up with branches and leaves and things down inside your holster. Now you may have a bit of a plug problem in getting that gun out in a hurry. So, yeah, I probably need to hear from a lot of different holster makers out there. This was a chest rig with that flap over it to fit whatever. So if you're making holsters that will fit any handgun, whatever sizes and whatever, we probably should hear from you so we could advise folks on where to go looking for those. Okay, Sean from Nova Scotia. Ron, I'm looking at a Weatherby Camilla for my wife. That is a rifle stock that Weatherby makes that is designed for a typical female's proportion rather than a big man, I guess. So the Camilla is built for women, and he says he's shopping for one for his wife. They currently hunt whitetail deer, but she wants to go after an elk. I'm having a hard time deciding which caliber, and I've had it narrowed down to either the 6.5 RPM or the 280 AI. We would welcome any information you could provide. She currently uses a Browning A-Bolt Micro in 7mm 08 Remington. I do reload, so ammo choices are not really an issue. Thanks, Sean. Okay. Boy, Sean, both of them are great choices. I'm real familiar with the 280 AI because I've used it on elk and moose and sheep and everything. The 6.5 RPM I've used to punch a few holes in paper. But it's a good option. That 6.5 RPM is the 284 Winchester, which was the first rebated commercial cartridge that was a success back in the mid-60s. 64 it came out. So it has the rim diameter of a 30-06 or a 270 or a 308. It'll fit the bolt faces for all of those. But the body size is at a 1/2 inch, so you get a lot more powder in it. The upshot was Winchester was trying to make it perform equal to the 270, but in a short action, and that's what it does. So think of it that way. Now, what the RPM is they took that case, and instead of keeping it short, they went back to making it long. So now you're back up there to the same length as your 280 AI, but you're shooting a .264 bullet instead of a 284 bullet. So you got a little narrower bullet. You're going to have maybe a little bit higher BC, but certainly at a lighter weight, which means a little bit less recoil. So think for elk, you're probably going to be looking for some 6.5 bullets in about 150 grains. I don't know what they've all got these days. They keep making so many more new bullets that are a little bit heavier than usual. But 140 grain to 150 grain bullet on elk is going to be more than plenty. I've taken a lot of elk with different 7s using that bullet weight. So I don't see there's any reason why a 6.5 wouldn't do the same. And there are a lot of folks around my part of the world out here who take elk and even moose with a 6.5 Creedmoor and 143 grain bullet. So the right bullet will do the job with either one of those. I think she'll get a little less recoil from that 6.5 RPM. And look at the ballistics on it. It might shoot a little bit flatter as well. So either one of them, though, is going to do just fine for you. Good luck. And the last, I think we've got coming up here from Georgia, John from Georgia. Hey, Ron, I'm a complete amateur to the hunting world, and I've been listening to your podcast for quite some time, and I love your content. Well, that's cool, John. You know, I hear from a few folks now and then who say they really weren't hunters, and they started listening to me, and now they're really interested. So it kind of gives me a pat on the back. I really appreciate that, guys. I hope I'm not steering you wrong. I think you're going to love it. The only frustrating part will be you'll want to go more often than you can. That's the way it worked for me. It was when I was younger. Oh my gosh, I couldn't wait for the hunting seasons to start. And then when they did, I couldn't wait to get off work so I could go. So what else does John say here? I'm trying to start off small with hunting, and I want a rifle that can take both squirrels and coyotes. I plan on skinning them for their pelts, and I'm struggling to find a cartridge that can handle both animals without too much power or too little power. Thank you for all your advice, and I really appreciate what you have to say about conservation. Well, thanks, John. I really appreciate that as well. Big deal, that conservation stuff, or we wouldn't have anything to hunt. Now, yeah, that is a bit of a challenge, but both squirrels and coyotes. Generally, with coyotes, we figured, well, let's go with a 223 Remington, 22-250, Remington, or these days a 22 Creedmoor. Something in that range is really, really good for coyotes, but too much for squirrels, even with a headshot. I've tried some, and there's such explosive power in those bullets that they'll ruin the front shoulders of that squirrel as well, and that's where a lot of your meat is. You want to just take a nice, clean headshot with a 22. So then that suggests, what about a 17? Well, now the 17 HMR has enough pop to it to do a coyote in. Put that little bullet right behind the shoulder and you'll get your coyote or a headshot. And if you're head shooting squirrels, you should certainly be able to head shoot a coyote. Call him in within 100 yards, I think you're going to be golden. So you might want to think about that 17 HMR. Now, a little more powerful one, actually a lot more powerful one, is the 17 Winchester Super Magnum. That thing is really powerful. Little too much for squirrels. Similar deal. Take them in the head and you're probably going to lose part of the shoulders, if not all. So I'd try that 17 HMR. I think that's as close as you're going to get. Your other option is to stick with a 22 rimfire and very precisely shoot that coyote in the ear or right between the eyes. He's going to have to be inside of probably 75 yards for you to do that. You just have a lot more drop. Now, you could get a dialing turret, and I'll get it all tuned up for the trajectory of your 22 load, and you might do all right out to 100 yards or so. But then you've got to have a real precise shot because there's not much energy left in that bullet. Now, I think you're going to have to go for headshots on your coyotes with that. But the best answer is you're going to have to get 2 rifles. Get a 22 rimfire for all your small game and your plinking and your target shooting, and it's just inexpensive fun. Great little rifle to have. Everybody needs to have a 22 long rifle. And then step up to a 223 or 22 Creedmoor, something like that for your coyotes, and I think you'll enjoy it a lot more. But until then, if you just want to get started, might try that 17 HMR. All right, now we've got a California again. This is Alex. He says, "Hi, Betsy. Please put this in front of Ron. We know who runs the shows." I wish you'd have read that one, honey. So he says, "Hi, Ron. Hey, what happens to a fired and stable bullet after it loses velocity? Does it eventually become unstable and tumble? Using bullet stability calculators, I'm able to find out that a bullet loses velocity, it becomes less stable. I'm reloading my fondly remembered by Ron and maybe for sale if Ron wants it, M77 Mark II and 270. And I see that Barnes LRX bullets drop below the stability threshold at about 225 yards. Does this mean that when my bullet drops below the stability threshold, it tumbles? Doesn't sound long enough. Doesn't sound like a long-range LRX to me. This can't be right, right? Right. I love everything you two do, and I thank you for making me the first winner of the website Comment of the Week in episode 416. Wow. Congratulations, Alex. I'm happy to accept my hunt with you and Betsy in Africa. Just kidding, unless you're actually offering one. Good one, Alex. Yeah, you're a little bit mixed up here on this twist stuff. So, tumbling. Boy, I've shot stuff at 1,250 yards quite accurately and no tumbling. And I've picked up bullets way down range that have been shot into the snow, and they're making straight line tracks into the snow. They're not rumbling and tumbling around. I don't know how slow they would have to get to start tumbling. I've really not looked into that because I really don't care what happens to those bullets after 1,000 yards or more of travel. But not being stable at a threshold at 225 yards, that makes no sense at all. I have never seen that happen. The stability issue, gosh, I'm not quite sure what they're telling you there. Yeah, where did you get your information? Using bullet stability calculators. Yeah, I'm not sure. If you're looking at that the Burger Bullets stability calculator, they tell you which twist rate you need to stabilize which length of bullet at what velocity. That says your bullet is stable. It's going to stay stable. The velocity doesn't matter that much once it's out of the barrel. So having more velocity helps with stability, not nearly as much as a twist rate increase. That helps the most. But once that's done, your bullet's going to be stable flying down range. As it's buzzing slower and slower, it stays stable. Like I said, I've seen it out to 1,250 yards. I don't know that I've ever engaged a target. Well, I have. I've shot some 1 mile targets, but I don't know the result of the bullet getting there. I think we were shooting at a 4x8 foot plate, and we were hitting it thinking, wow, aren't we great shots? Well, come on, you're going to hit a barn out there eventually. So How that bullet landed, I don't know. But as I said, the ones at 1,250 yards in the snow looked like they were completely stable. So anyone else has some real long-range experience. I know these extreme range shooters are doing this 2-mile stuff. They're engaging targets and getting there, and that suggests to me their bullet's pretty darn stable, and I can't imagine they're going very fast when they get there. So I need more information from someone who's been there, done that, and that's not me. So thanks for a confounding question for me this week, Alec. We're going to have to give you the question of the week again. We'll call you the stumping question of the week. Ron doesn't know. Guys, ladies, I thank you all for your indulgence. Let us know what you think of Betsy on the show. Should we include more of Betsy or more of Covey or less of me?
Covey. Less of you, more of Covey.
We'll see how the votes come in. Everybody send in your votes. We'll see you next time. Hunt honest and shoot straight.